Our next witness is Matt Taibbi. Mr. Taibbi is an award-winning investigative reporter and editor for Racket News. Mr. Taibbi was a contributing editor at Rolling Stone, won a National Magazine Award, authored 4 New York Times bestsellers, and now writes on Substack as one of its most popular independent columnists in the country with tens of thousands of subscribers. Mr. Taibbi, you are recognized for your opening statement.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Paul, Ranking Member Peters, distinguished members of the committee. Last year, former Hawaii Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard was placed in a surveillance program called Quiet Skies by the Transportation and Security Administration. She was subject to intrusive searches, followed by bomb-sniffing dogs, and trailed by 3 federal air marshals per flight. To cover the story, I contacted the TSA. They no-commented the main question about the truth of the story, but added, as if in mitigation, quote, simply matching to a risk-based rule does not constitute derogatory information about an individual. That's bureaucratese for, we can't say if Mrs. Gabbard was in the program, but if she was, don't draw any conclusions because we do this even to innocent people. Before Quiet Skies was discontinued by this administration, it was a symbol of the steep decline of federal enforcement since 9/11. The government spent $200 million a year following up to 50 people a day for a program that in its history never once led to an arrest or thwarted a single terrorist act. Despite its demonstrated inutility and grave civil liberties concerns, it was refunded year after year because this is what our government does now. It gathers information on its own citizens as an end in itself. In a week in which the question of whether federal security officials always tell the truth to Congress is back in the news, it's worth noting that it's now been 13 years since then National Intelligence Director James Clapper answered no, sir, and not winningly, when Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon asked, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans? Clapper later explained that he'd responded in the, quote, least, most untruthful manner. That episode solidified a principle that holds in America today. If you lie about mass surveillance programs, even under oath, you not only get to keep your job, you get to be hired as a professional truth teller after retirement as a national security analyst for CNN. If you try to tell the truth, on the other hand, about the same issues, your options are prison or leaving the country forever. In those 13 years, Americans have become numb to surveillance. It was once a core principle that government couldn't or shouldn't spy on its citizens without predication. Now, much of the country accepts as inevitable the idea that every move we make is being recorded and analyzed. We know emails and phone conversations, at minimum, are being collected passively, and mountains of data we leave behind as our lives move increasingly online, from geolocations of cell phones to GPS tracking to travel, banking, and medical records are increasingly fodder for an overt or covert acquisition by federal analysts. As Google admitted last week, federal officials partnered with companies not just to monitor speech, but to suppress it on a grand scale. Quiet Skies was the paradigmatic example of a program that could take endless liberties with the Constitution because it was secret. When you gather information with no intention of ever going to court, as the TSA did with Quiet Skies, you never have to justify yourself to a judge. This leads to a lot of what one court recently called the exact sort of general exploratory rummaging that the Fourth Amendment was designed to prevent. This is a betrayal not just of the public, but of people like Mr. Crowder, who've been trained for important work, but have been forced to do intelligence work and gather information on fellow citizens instead. As former Marshal Robert McLean put it to me, the Air Marshal's job is to protect the cockpit, and the pilots let somebody else do the intelligence. One FBI agent I interviewed a few years ago said, the distinction between people who believe bad thoughts and the people who do bad things has been, quote, completely lost in our government since 9/11. Once you start down the road of collecting information on innocent people, it creates the intellectual justification for doing it again and again and again. All this information gathering reverses the natural political order, giving elected officials undeserved and unearned power over their bosses, us, the voters. It's time to stop being numb to this outrage. Let's hope the elimination of Quiet Skies is just the beginning. Thank you very much.
The committee now welcomes Jim